Hey guys, Crowbar Zero here with another tower video. And long ago, I did a video that you might recognize some of its background, but a little bit different. And in that video, I talked about what does it look like from the beginning of the game all the way to the end. So, like your starter to end game account. And things have changed drastically, like huge, monumental changes ever since that point. It was like 2 years ago or something. Uh, but yeah, it kind of started out looking like this, but we're going to go into the new, and things are going to look a little bit better. So anyway, we're going to start it out. So when you first start the game, you don't have any ultimate weapons. You're just kind of climbing up. You die, you redo it again, and you die again, and redo it again. Just trying to inch your way up through everything. And generally, that approach. Give me a second. For the starter accounts, is usually kind of the best route to go is just turtle. So you're just full effective hit points. You're just soaking as many hits as you can with like absolute defense. Thorns is your best friend. You know, high defense percent, all of that fun jazz, and high health. Hopefully some lifesteal in there, so once you get a little bit past where you start taking damage, you can kind of get some of that. But you know, that's kind of your early tiers. And along that way, hopefully the first two ultimate weapons that you get is Golden Tower or GT and Black Hole or Page. And even if you don't have them synchronized, just having those two ultimate weapons is a great starting point, regardless of they're synchronized or not. And then once you get into the early game, so in the early game, you're working on synchronizing these ultimate weapons so they go off at the same time. There's several that you're going to get along the way to kind of help that out. And so during that, hopefully you can get Golden Tower, Black Hole, Death Wave, Spotlight, and Smart Sense. And trying to get those synchronized all up is pretty much where I would say is like the cutoff to really start getting into the big game. And you're like, Spotlight and Smart Misses? What? And you do get a coin bonus for killing the misses Spotlight. And then for Smart Missiles, the big thing is if you're able to synchronize it with the rest of your econ, you pretty much have an AFK way to basically clear out your black hole of procs that it's probably going to suck in. So hopefully at that point you're still doing a lot of that turtling. You're not doing too many attacks per second. So you're basically hoarding a bunch of enemies like right on your tower. And then you know, if your econ goes off, so do your smart missiles. And when you have smart missiles in the labs done, or a bunch of work done on them, the smart missiles explode when they hit. So each explosion is going to overlay others, and you're going to be able to amp your damage on those enemies, and you're going to be able to just, pretty much when your econ goes off, it just goes boom, everything dies. It synergizes really well as you basically build up those labs, you build up that explosion radius, and maybe a little bit of damage and quantity. But yeah, that'll be kind of like, this is your tool to make sure that you can clear out your black hole. And then any kills after that, you can kind of target priority towards Achilles and Spotlight, stuff along those lines. And if you've got some duration, obviously your Golden Tower, your black hole, and maybe some black hole damage, you can kind of like eat away at the remaining enemies that spawn after that initial boom. You know, you floated a bunch of enemies right on the tower. You know, probably at this point, you're still probably struggling with some modules, trying to get those. You're trying to balance, like, do I get cards? Do I get modules? And it's a really hard toss-up because you don't know if, like, the next pull is going to completely change how you're doing things. Like, its modules are very powerful, but it's RNG based. And for some people, they can go a really long time without ever getting the things that they need. So kind of balance that is like, okay, are you willing to be on the gambling side, or are you willing to go more towards like, okay, this is, I'm guaranteed to fill out these cards eventually. There's a limited pool. I'm going to pull on it. And that's a good chunk of where that early game is. Now, once you get all those things synchronized together and everything's working, you're making some really good point. Also, on top of that, Death Wave is also enhancing your health. It's enhancing the number of cells that you drop, so both your labs are running a lot faster. You're just making a lot more. And then on to the next one. It's a drink of water. So the mid game, there's a good long period that you're going to be going through. You're basically collecting up all your ultimate weapons. At the end of unlocking all the ultimate weapons, you are able to unlock Ultimate Weapon Plus. And with that, you can get Golden Tower Plus, which is very, very powerful for your econ. So, hopefully at this point, you've got like mythic to like ancestral side of most of your modules. At this point, you're probably looking at the end of this. And pretty much you're done with their cards, except for like masters at this point. And at that point, you're gonna switch into late game. And honestly, I'm probably somewhere between late game and in game. So we're gonna go over late game. Late game, you're gonna be going through. You're gonna max out your Golden Tower Plus. And with Golden Tower Plus, it also benefits for really high duration. So the more you're able to build up that duration, the more effective your Golden Tower Plus is. It's a combo counter kind of deal, and it's only after like your Gold Tower goes off, it only counts enemies that spawn after that Golden Tower goes off, which I think is kind of a lame mechanic, but it is what it is. So really having more duration is going to give you more of a percentage window of when you're actually killing things that are spawning, all of that stuff. So it's kind of frozen for maybe about like the first 5 seconds of game time, maybe like 5 to 10 seconds, somewhere around there. Yeah, you want to get the most of it. Yeah, and then going on, you're probably going to be in late game. You're going to be working towards, you've got ancestral modules, trying to build up to 5-star on pretty much all the ones that are going to be useful for you. And then you're going to buy Spotlight Quantity 4, which is going to give you 4 beams of Spotlight. It's really expensive, but it's really, really nice. At that point, once you have Spotlight 4, it gives you a pretty decent coverage. It's not like you're very likely to be able to hit bosses with your smart missiles when they spawn if you have Spotlight Plus. If you have like 3 or Spotlight Quantity 4 versus like Quantity 3. So it's going to help tremendously as far as cutting down the randomness on when that ultimate weapon is going to be effective. Also, just generally, the more coverage you have with Spotlight, the more areas that Spotlight missiles can attack, which is basically like a really, really powerful like Smart Missile Plus. It's actually better. Just because it can go off a lot more frequently than Spotlight missiles. Smart Missile Plus. Too many things. Yeah. You'll be using later game. We'll be using gcomp and Multiverse Nexus. That way you can reduce the cooldown on Death Wave and have that proc as much as possible. This might change in the future, but kind of where things are at right now in version 25, that's kind of where it's at. You're slowly, as you're able to afford it, because econ is going to be huge for this, you're going to be dipping into some masteries, maybe 1 or 2 initially, and then you're going to build on that. Give me just a second. Gotta get some water here. Those masteries are basically going to feeding to you being able to get more masteries, possibly even amp up your cell econ as well. And also during this stage, you're going to start working on some of your CC. It's going to be really, really important. Reason being is this is the point of the game really starting to focus on specific enemy types to counter. And we kind of get a flavor of that very early in the game with garlic thorns. Because garlic thorns really early in the game is really effective against the enemy that hurts you the most, which is vampire enemies. So this is that's the beginning game. Oh hey, this is how you counter this. And then you're going into the late game where you're dealing with stuns and trying to manage enemies that way. So you get as much damage as you can out as quickly as possible. Yeah, endgame. Yeah, endgame is intense. So endgame, I'm not at this point. I've tried a bit. That's where you tend to get into more digester farming. You have to have a very high amount of investment, I would say, into your free up enhancements to actually be able to make this worthwhile, where it starts to outperform gcomp multiverse nexus combo. The downside is you're not earning as much cells. So it's kind of a trade-off, okay, I want to earn more coin. Hopefully maybe so that you can buy more bonuses into cell drops. And then, just kind of feed that cycle with the extra econ that you're making with a digester. It's a very high investment. Some people are saying maybe it's around, I think to max it, it's 7 big Q coins, and where am I at? I'm just gonna show you guys, just a reference. I'm not there. I'm working towards it, but I'm not. And that's 3.75. I'm not there. Maybe I can start playing around with that in a few months from now, but I'm not at that point yet. And I just need a huge amount into that freedom plus to make this viable. You're gonna want near max or near max spotlight angle. Probably that last level isn't a huge return on investment, but it's really nice. And there might be some strategies that I'm not completely aware of, where you can take the spotlight angle substat off, but I don't know all the details. I think that's kind of an experimental concept currently, and it may or may not. But having your max spotlighting is very good. You're going to be farming with max Chronofield Plus at that point. The Chronofield Plus, if you can't tell, here, I'll show you here. You see how the enemies are coming up and they get caught in the Chronofield, and it swings them over. That's Chronofield Plus. It turns their straight vector into an angular motion. So they start coming in and they'll go, do the circle around. The black hole is going to catch them, actually very reliably. And that's how you're going to get your kills. You're going to basically be trying to kill enemies in your black hole using Chronofield tiles to swing them around. So that way you can actually farm at higher effective ranges. And that's important because at that point you're probably going to have Spotlight Plus, which allows your damage per meter to affect enemies like way out here. So it's a little bit of a trade-off game, and that's why you saw next early workshop, which I'll show you over here. At this point, you're probably farming about tier 16. It seems like that's the end game node for farming. I don't know of anyone yet who's farming tier 17, but overall I've heard that the battle conditions are just amped up just enough where it's pretty brutal, and it's really hard to kind of manage the tier 17 versus the tier 16. So tier 16 seems to be kind of the capstone. I say about almost like 3,000 labs done or so. I'm kind of using myself as kind of like, I don't think I'm quite at the end game, but I'm pretty close. So anything more than this is probably pretty close to getting you to that end game amount of labs done. And a lot of the guys who are like way farther than me, they're probably about like 3,500. So it's kind of somewhere within that range, I would say. It's the end game. Earning, they're probably earning at that point about 6Q an hour, or maybe even more. Right now I'm kind of at about, I think, 5Q, a little bit over that. But they're earning a lot more, and obviously if you're getting into Blackboard Digester farming, you're going to be farming coin anyway at a higher rate. So this is kind of my rough estimate. Yeah, not quite there yet, but I've got friends that are like, oh yeah, this is about where I'm at, so I'm just throwing out my best guess where things are. Because obviously right now I'm not doing Black Hole Digester farming. I'm just using gcomp multiverse setup. Chances are at the end game, you're going to have ×5 across all the lab slots. You'll be earning enough cells to keep that going. If you're using gcomp multiverse nexus, like I am right now, you're probably earning a little bit more cells, but doing it that way, we might be able to actually slot in like ×6 occasionally, or maybe even like keep 1 to permanent. As you're kind of transitioning into this new setup. Yeah. And then a lot of the big things about that changes with the very late into endgame farming is you now have battle conditions. And that changes the game up drastically. So generally, as a rule of thumb, probably for like 95 or more % of the player base, you're never going to want to farm with Death Ray. And there's a lot of tools that generally you're probably not going to want to farm. But because of battle conditions specifically, some of those tools actually become viable. And I'm just going to pull up battle condition here. So one of those is orb resistance. Instead of destroying enemies, which generally you don't want to destroy enemies with orbs, this will just do a percentage of damage. Same thing with Death Ray. And really, especially with Death Ray, because you can end up killing enemies really far away. But this just keeps it down to 25% of their max health. And that's really, really big. Because you want that time for enemies to travel way out here and be able to make your way into a black hole so that you can get all those coin bonuses. And that's kind of where it's like, oh hey, now it actually becomes vital. Thorns resistance. Pain in the butt. as far as having this work in your favor, by the time they're taking thorns damage, they're probably close enough to being in your econ. So, yeah, this is just a pain in the butt. Knockback resistance. Yeah, you can roll knockback resistance. The biggest thing is going to be hopefully CC. So that would be your front of field. That's flinging enemies into your hole. And that's going to be more important than knocking back enemies. So I don't think it's very important as far as this one goes. Doesn't really affect much. Armored enemies. Again, if Death Ray goes out, it's not going to be sniping enemies from really far away. It might take off one of these hits. So, in a way, armored enemies, it helps kind of protect them so that they can get closer to your econ, and then you can really start to benefit. The problem with that is it also slightly protects enemies. So if you are using Death Wave armor stripping, the theory is there might be a point if you raise that up too high that it may be detrimental. I'm not sure 100% on that. I'm probably going to play around with some numbers eventually to see, okay, how does this thing change my econ? Change stuff along those lines. So you might want to be careful. Oops, don't want to get to that. Got Protector Ultimate. Giant pain in the butt. Because it makes enemies immune to knockback, shockwave, and more important, black hole damage. Well, part of this is I'm not sure it might also give immunity to black hole itself as a CC. It may or may not. But yeah, this protects enemies, makes it a lot easier for them to come in and kill you. So that's where things like all the way, oh, maybe not all. This is where this mastery may actually be useful. Those enemies might actually be a danger as a result of ultimate protectors. So this lab will make it go up to 50% of the time. The death ray will pierce through the protector shield and kill the and well damage the enemies that are inside. Probably not gonna kill them. But at least do something. And it looks like I've got my daily stuff to claim. Should do that. Yeah. Yeah, the game changes so dramatically. So you go. Hopefully that gives you guys kind of an overview on the quicker side of how things look. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys found that informative, and I'll catch you guys later.